Hello, John.
Hello, Oliver.
So today we're going to talk about things that used to happen in the past. I remember my aunt, he should rest in peace, in County Kerry. She used to have a farm, and she always had one room in the house that was locked. And inside that room, everything that was special and expensive was in there. And I remember it was only opened about maybe on two occasions in the year, and the best of China was kept in that room. Okay, and it's this is how my aunt used to greet her guests. They used to get the best of everything, the best of China. It was a very special occasion when somebody arrived. They were treated really, really well, as with the utmost respect. And of course, that doesn't happen now. And so that's what we're going to talk about.
Yes. That's quite true. As a matter of fact, quite a few homes in my time, and I presume before it even, but certainly there was a room that was not used by the family because people had, it wasn't one and a half children that have now kind of thing. There might be five or six or more. And of course, they're in and out up to all sorts of skullduggery. And if that room was opened, it mightn't be in the condition that the lady in the house wanted it to be. After all, she was in charge because everything revolved around what she was doing in the house because she was in the house. She wasn't out somewhere else gallivanting or whatever to do. She was in the house, and so therefore she was in charge there. That was her. That was her domain, and so she kept a room separate and with good stuff in it, good knives and forks, whatever they could afford, and they might have got presents years ago, and they were in that room, and there might be a dining table that could seat maybe half a dozen that might be visiting, because when people were visiting them times, there might be the husband and wife and maybe brother and sister coming, and oftentimes people come from the United States. Our brothers and sisters went over there, or even went to England, and they were more or less doing all right. They they saved and prospered, and when I say prospered, they put something aside, and then they were able to buy a home and that type of thing. So they would pay a visit, and often relatives from different parts of this country, it sort of pay a visit, but they'd let the mother of the house know in advance, so that she could have things organised. Because often she bought ham and lettuce, especially in the summertime, or some other delicacies, and she had the best of china and a nice cutlery. My late wife, Lord Mercer, she was of that caliber, and so well, I walked down actually all these things, and she had lovely plates and that. I meant to bring one in and kind of demonstrators, and you can't put them in microwaves because it would not do them good. They're not the kind of modern ones that you can put into these things. These are what I call delicate, and it's obvious that they're good quality, and they'd be coming out, and she would feel vindicated for the prudent way that she kept everything, and to be a nice meal put on the table. It was the summertime, to be some ham and lettuce and tomatoes and all the rest of it, and oftentimes those that were allowed in, kind of thing, were kind of had manners, and would keep our silence. You were often told to sort of be seen and not heard. So the adults' conversation, and if they ask you a question to know something, like sometimes they might, out of courtesy, not to have you just there like a dummy, say, "Are you in school?" And you might say yes. And what class you in? I, I'm I'm I, I'm in high babies, high babies, not low babies, high babies. So you were proceeding up the tree. or you might be even a little further afield because at that stage you mightn't be invited in because you might just let something fall, but you like to be partaking of the delicacies that was prepared for the visitors. And but you certainly didn't take you weren't yapping like the way they do nowadays, the young people, and because as you rightly say, they're not calling the way they did, and people are not going to that trouble. But funny enough, even myself, I have a dining table out what I call the sun house, and the visitors do happen to call it as, shall we say, four or five of them. But the kitchen is small, so out the go there, weather permitting. One time I had to take them out in the rain. Uh, so, because there's a dining table there and half a dozen can sit around, and then that means bring the food out. But because you in the couches and they can sit down and relax. And oftentimes the mother of the house would sort of something that you'd never see only at Christmas. She might have a drop of port, but they didn't seem to go into for wine so much in those times. Would you have a port or a sherry? That's what to be having. And I don't think it'd be whiskey. I don't remember that. I remember port or sherry. So, had you any of that sort of experience
The experience I had,
with your aunt?
the experience I had growing up was that when a guest arrived, to the house, that the dining room was set for them, and china came out and silver and all kinds of nice things, you know. And I just think that it was like a ritual, and it made the people feel really well respected, as if they were important. And that nowadays you don't really see that anymore, and I think we take our guests for granted. And as I said, a lot of the time we don't have guests at all because people don't really call to each other's houses. And I give you an example. Um, my father, who's a Kerry man, normally when we go to see people around the country, he's a great conversationalist. He will actually not go to the front door of people's houses. He's very traditional. He'll go in the back door and he won't even knock. Okay. He just walks in and announces, "Hello, how are you?" And of course, they all know him so well that they just say, "Oh, how are you?" You know? And then it's great. You know, he's a very casual way of doing it. A lot of that thing wouldn't happen now, you know, but I think the whole ritual of getting out to find china for your guest, I think it was a very nice ritual. There was something very special about it. You respected your guest, and
There was.
it was, you know, and it leads into other things with that, where you have this respect for the guest. It created kind of how would I explain it? It set a precedent for the conversation almost as well, in the sense that, like, here was two people that were showing each other the greatest of respect. Therefore, the conversation they would have would be a very respectful type of conversation also.
All right. And be very, if you want to use the word, you used to use a word in my time, manners make it the man, manners make it the
There you
person.
go.
And
Yes,
that was emphasized so that there was that. And quite frankly, I remember, and it's not so much practice nowadays, people blessed themselves before they had the meal
there you go.
and giving thanks because people didn't have much of the material things of this world. But what they did have, or what they tried to have, was something special that they could, when visitors called, that come from a distance, they would have this. If it was locals, well, then they were used to calling in and sitting in the kitchen or wherever they used as the place where everybody was. There wasn't a ceremony there, but it was with people that come from a bit of a distance. And those times, sometimes they would have to maybe travel by train and things like that.
Hmm.
Cars come all right, I think, all right, and but not everybody had cars either. And
Hmm.
anyone that had a car was kind of on the up and up. We
That
didn't have a car
that's it. You
in
know,
a fit.
I actually got the idea when I was in a little coffee shop. It's kind of a little coffee shop restaurant in Galway, in the summertime, and it's called Cup on Tay. Okay, and it's a very dainty little shop. I showed some of the photographs there at the beginning of the video, But it's a really nice place. And when I was sitting there having my afternoon high tea with all the lovely little trays, different trays of beautiful cakes and stuff, I was thinking to myself, you actually feel special when the china comes out. And I was thinking to myself, those days down in the aunt's house when the guests used to arrive, the special guests, I kind of miss those days.
Yeah, well, they bring back memories. And funny enough, when you're going through it, it doesn't, when you're going through Anton, it's only what they call the words that the poet used to say, recollection and tranquility. And quite frankly, everything I think that you do in life, it's actually recollection and tranquility. When you're going through it and that, so on and so forth, and it's live, if you like. But when you look back on it, it's a very marvelous, it becomes something more important and it would be important when you're going through it. Now, for example, when I visited Listowel there last year and stayed in the Listowel Arms Hotel, that lovely hotel there in the square, and lovely hotel, and I'm very fond of it, and a very friendly staff, thanks be to God, which is a good thing to get. You don't get it in the city. You get just a different type of thing altogether. It's the business of being greeted, and hospitality is something that they might have read in books, but they don't know how to practice it. But down there they did, and I had the pleasure of meeting your father, mother, and other members of the family, and it was a very enjoyable meeting. It had all the hallmarks of what we're after talking about, vis-a-vis the somebody coming from a distance and being treated very kindly, and all the rest of it, and it leaves a good memory in the mind.
It
It
doesn't.
it it, it gives when you ponder these things, it gives you a bit of a what I call an uplift, and this is what years ago when the people did that. Funny enough, you respected it. It wasn't something that you said, "I wish to goodness I could go in there." The door would be locked. You wouldn't get in there or
You
kick
wouldn't.
off because you had muddy shoes and all the rest of it. You wouldn't know what sort of where you'd be because you were out all the time mucking around here, there, and yonder. And
Hmm.
I remember sliding down banks in the snow and seeing me pants. So obviously you wouldn't be as tidy as you should be. And but what they did those times, and they didn't have much of this world's goods sometimes in other ways, but they certainly had that respect. And I think those of us that experienced it were very lucky. And I'm a older vintage now. I'm my second childhood, if you like. And this is why I need a snooze like a baby now and again. So this is the great gift that these memories is what I cherish. That we have this, and we don't have knocks on the doors. They used to say, a knock on the door is a very pleasant thing, assuming it's a knock from a friend and that kind of thing. You don't get too many of those. You get somebody looking for something. Isn't
Yeah,
that right?
I always say
You
that,
don't get the visitor coming in and making an arrangement to visit and have a bit of a chat and so on and so on, because I'm doing a bit of that now in my videos because I think it's good to talk.
mhm,
We don't get enough of it.
you don't get enough of it. John Malone,
No.
thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Oliver.